Bore da pawb, croeso I chi gyd. Welcome to the Governance and Audit Committee. This is the 26th of November 2021. And just to confirm that today's meeting is being recorded. Can I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting and kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate. Can I please remind you all to switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? In addition, can I refer you to the protocols for remote meetings which have been previously circulated? Namely, your microphones should be switched to mute unless you're speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either via the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams? I'll assume that you have all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand function or to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, can you please indicate the page number? So the first item on the agenda is to do a roll call. So I'm Councillor Del Morgan, the Chair. I'm present, and I will now ask the Democratic Service Officer, I think it's going to be Alison, to take the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. So I'll go through our councillors first. Councillor Helen Clark.
Present.
Councillor Oliver Davis.
Present, thank you, Alison.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present, Alison.
Thank you. Councillor Stephanie Lynch. Not here. Councillor John Miller.
Present, Alison.
I've had apologies from Councillor Rydian Maisen and Councillor Lynette Purcell and Councillor Suzanne Renkeys. Councillor Anthony Richards. No. Councillor Robert Wood.
Present.
And Councillor Arwyn Woolcock.
Present.
Thank you. And co-opted member Joanna Jenkins have received apologies from this morning. I'll now move to officers. Karen Jones.
Is present, Alison.
Thank you. Hugh Jones.
Yes, present, Alison.
Anne-Marie O'Donnell.
Present, Alison.
Thank you. Diane Milligan.
Present, Alison.
Karen Furlow-Harris.
Present.
Justine Morgan.
Present.
Thank you. And Gillian Gillett.
Present.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the meeting taking part that I haven't called this morning? No, that's the roll call complete then, Chair. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Alison. Thank you. That concludes item 1. So item 2 is the Chair's announcement. There are none today. Item 3 is declarations of interest. So can members please indicate whether you have any declarations in relation to the items that we have on today's agenda? No declarations of interest. Okay, thank you. Item 4 then. Item 4, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 8. Colleagues, accept these minutes, pages 5, 6, 7, finishing on 8. Are there any comments or questions? If not, can we please have a proposer and seconder?
I move, Chair.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you both. Right, all happy. Diolch yn fawr. Item 5, the external review action plan update will starting on page 9, pages 9 to 20, and I will call upon Mrs. Karen Jones, the Chief Executive Officer, to present this. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. This is an update report for you, so you can take an assurance that we have been progressing the work as I set out in the action plan that I brought before you a couple of months ago. There are just 3 points that I wanted to highlight by way of introducing the report, Chair. The first on page 15, which is where the table starts. So the first item there, reference number 1, is related to the work that we said we would do to bring greater clarity to the decision-making procedures related to capital works. And you'll see that we haven't completed that within the anticipated date of the 30th of September. The work has been done and is scheduled for consideration by the Cabinet on the 15th of December. So it has been done. It's just a little behind in terms of coming in before members for us to kind of formally sign that work off. So I wanted to draw attention to that. The second element then that I wanted to draw attention to is item number 6, which is page 17 going over to the top of page 18. and it's just to let you know that there has been quite a lot of progress around the options for dealing with the spoil tip at Kilmaine Gwyn. We had a public meeting back about a month, 6 weeks ago, and agreed that we would provide a further opportunity for public engagement before bringing the options report in front of members, but we are still intending to bring the next report by the end of the year. So it's been slightly delayed because we've agreed with the community up there that we need to have some further public engagement. So just wanted to flag that one up to you. And then the final bit that I wanted to flag up, which is on page 19, is reference number 9, related to the training that we said that we would undertake. We engage an excellent trainer through the Welsh Local Government Association. We've completed training for officers. That's included the directors, the heads of service, the accountable managers, and also other officers that have substantial contact with members. We've also completed training with the Cabinet. So what remains to be done is then training with the remainder of the members in the council. I consulted with the 3 political group leaders earlier this week, and their preference would be that we run the training as part of the member induction for next year rather than running it this side of the election. So that's what we're planning on doing, Chair, unless you've got views in the committee that you would want to express otherwise, and I'd be more than happy to go back and have another conversation with the group leaders if that was the committee's view, but their preference would be that we deliver that training as part of the induction at the early point of the next administration. So other than that, Chair, all of the actions that we set out have been completed, and as you know, the final action in this action plan is then for Anne-Marie and the internal audit system to do periodic checks to test that decision-making process, and that will automatically then come back to the Governance and Audit Committee as part of your normal internal audit assurance programme. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, but that's my report for today.
Diolch yn fawr, Karen. Members, you heard Karen's last point about training being focused following the May election. So with that in mind, or really anything at all in that report, do you have comments or questions you want to put to Karen? No, I take that as acceptance then, Karen, that we will look at the plan in accordance with how you've mapped it out there, and particularly that last point. So if members are happy, there's a pair of recommendations that we have on page 10 of our report. So we need to note the progress report in the appendix, and that we have provision made in the Internal Audit Service to periodically test how the changes described are being implemented and so on. So someone move, please, that we accept the recommendations.
Happy to move, Chair.
Diolch. Seconded.
I'll second, Chair.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Unless I see any hands going up, otherwise I will take that then as being accepted. Diolch yn fawr, thank you. Okay, item 6 is the Internal Audit Charter update, pages 21 to 32. And I will pass this one over to Hugh Jones. Hugh.
Thank you very much, Chair. Diolch. So this report in front of members today is an update to the Internal Audit Charter that was agreed back in April, and it's being brought today as a result of some staffing changes arising from the 1st of November following the retirement of the former Director of Finance and Corporate Services. Public sector internal audit standards require each local authority to have a designated head of internal audit as part of their role. Prior to the 1st of November, this role sat with the head of finance, but as at the 1st of November, the head of finance role no longer exists, so we need to redesignate another post within the council as head of internal audit. And the charter includes for this to be designated within the role of Chief Accountant Technical, which is currently filled by Diane Mulligan, who was on the call today. There's no changes, Chair, in terms of the day-to-day operation of the Internal Audit Service as a result of this, but it does need to be formally approved by members, Chair, hence the report in front of you today. So happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Diolch. Members, you've heard Hugh. Is there any question or anybody wants to say anything about this? Right, if not,
I do, Chair. I just
Councillor
wanted.
yes,
I
Sharon?
just wanted to ask. I think I know the answer, but I'm just checking. I was going to ask the scope within the scope that purely applies to internal audit, and it doesn't give those powers to this committee, does it?
That's purely for the Internal Audit Service, Chair.
So we
Councillor
don't
Freeguard.
share any of those powers.
No.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I think our committee is mentioned in the charter, but
Yeah.
these changes are because of the changes in the personnel structure, I believe. So it's a technicality in one sense. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, the recommendation for this one is on page 23, that we approve the revised internal charter, the internal audit charter in the appendix. Members happy? So mover and seconder, please.
I move, Chair.
Seconded.
Thank you, diolch yn fawr. If there aren't any hands in opposition, then we'll take that as accepted. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And I suppose the first meeting, our congratulations to the new Chief Finance Officer and the Head of Internal Audit has now designated. So diolch i chi.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, I'm going on to item 7. So item 7, pages 33 to 54 in our report. And this is going to be Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the report which begins on page 33 is the normal update report that comes before you every quarter. It is slightly different this quarter as I have needed to revise the audit plan going forward due to some staffing issues and the results of the impact rather of COVID on the authority. The first part, or rather if I could draw your attention to the staffing issues, which is point 4 on page 34, we currently have an assistant auditor post vacant, and we are looking at the structure of the section and the best way forward. So that post will remain vacant until those decisions are taken. The audit work undertaken, well, that's self-explanatory, and I'm happy to take any questions any members may have on anything under point 5, or indeed appendix 2, which shows the progress against the current plan. Anything? No? Okay, moving on then to the revised audit plan. As members are aware, at the start of every financial year, you approve a plan going forward based on the higher medium risk areas across the authority. This year, our work has been severely curtailed because of 2 factors. One, we've had a higher than normal level of sickness in the team, which has reduced the number of days that we have available, but also because of COVID and the restrictions it has placed, there are some audits that we just can't undertake. Therefore, I have, in conjunction with heads of service and some accountable managers, agreed to either delete audits completely or to roll them over into the new financial year. So the new plan is detailed on page 51 and concludes on page 54. If members are satisfied with it, then the recommendation is that you approve it. But happy to answer any questions any members may have in relation to the thinking behind the changes.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. We have had in advance a question sent in from Jo Jenkins. She's apologised for not being able to be present today. Anne-Marie's had this, and the question is along the lines that Jo would be looking for a catch-up, a briefing in terms of the revised plan. The decision to revise the internal audit plan, deleting certain areas from the plan, is wholly understandable. But Jo says she would be keen to understand the knock-on impact and pressures of that decision on the 2022/23 plan. So, Anne-Marie, I know you've responded to her. Would you like to summarise to the committee?
Yes, certainly, Chair. It's inevitable that the decision to amend this year's plan will have a knock-on effect to next year's plan, as we won't be able to accommodate new areas that we would like to have done. However, I am content that the audits which I intend to roll forward to next year's plan need to be undertaken. They are predominantly high-risk areas. They have been requested by chief officers, and they link directly into the council's corporate priorities. Going forward, I intend to meet early in the new year with each head of service and their senior management team to discuss their risks and priorities for 22/23 and to discuss areas to be audited. Until those meetings have taken place, it's difficult to quantify what the effect of rolling the audits forward will have. Safe to say that, like most services throughout the authority, we will be dealing with the effects of the pandemic for at least the next couple of years.
Thanks very much for that, Anne-Marie. Thank you. So, colleagues, you've heard the answer to that question. Any other members with questions or any comments for Anne-Marie? Right, if not, we are looking at the recommendation on page 38. Oh, somebody like to move, please, and second?
I'll move, Chair.
Seconded.
Thanks, seconded by John, thank you. So any hands for abstentions or in opposition to that? No, that's carried. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Item 8
Thank
you. Is on page 55. So this is the Register of Regulators reports and recommendations, pages 55 to 64. And Karen Furlow will take this. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides the committee with their first update on the reports received by external regulators since April 2021. So at your last meeting back in September, you were presented with a proposed process to enable yourselves to formally consider reports that are issued to us by our external regulators and to assure yourselves that there are arrangements in place to monitor any accepted recommendations that are contained in those reports. So this is your first update following that process. So on pages 56 to 58, I've listed the 7 national reports that we've received and the 2 local reports that we've received since April 21. I've included a very brief summary for you on the content of the reports, and under each one, I have said that there were no recommendations contained in any of those reports we've received. 2 of the reports are probably of a particular interest to this committee, that being the National Report on Financial Sustainability of Local Government, that's number 6 on the list, and the Local Report on Financial Sustainability, number 9, and they're both on your agenda for consideration later in the meeting. So in Appendix 1, I've summarised all that detail for a glance picture of what we've received, and that's going to be updated for you on a 6-monthly basis. Chair, if I may, I would like to take the opportunity to update the committee on 2 additional reports that we've received since April. They were received in September. The first one was a national report published by Audit Wales, and that was on regeneration of town centres. It was a national report. It contained a number of recommendations, many of which were for Welsh Government. There were 2 recommendations for local authorities. Officers in the Environment Directorate are now considering those recommendations, and a report is being taken to the Regeneration and Sustainable Cabinet Board in January, which will set out the action that's going to be taken to address those recommendations. So I'll bring that forward when you have your next update, so you can assure yourselves then something's been done about the recommendations, and I'll be able to update you as well as what monitoring arrangements have been put in place. The second report that we've received was more of a letter than a report. that was following the joint inspection of child protection arrangements called the CHIGPA. That had a number of findings. A joint action plan has been developed in response to that. That action plan has been developed by social services, education, police, health, probation and youth justice. And that, I understand, is being presented to Social Care, Health and Wellbeing Board, Cabinet Board in December. So again, I will add that to your next update to provide you with assurance that what's happening to those recommendations or findings and update you on the monitoring arrangements that will be put in place. So Chair, that I've got no more to add to the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Diolch, Karen. Members, would you have any questions or comments in relation to the 9 items reported today, or indeed the 2 new items mentioned? Members, you'll recall the format of the simple reporting template that we've been given in the appendix. We approved that last time. So, members, anything that you wish to contribute? Okay, if not, if everyone's happy, we're going back to page 58 for the recommendation. So that committee notes this report and the updated register as presented. Someone move and second, please.
Happy to move, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr, Edwin.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Rob. Right, diolch yn fawr. So if there are no hands going up in abstention or against, then I take that as being accepted. Diolch yn fawr. Right, item 9, item 10 and item 11 will be presented by Gillian Gillette and Justine Morgan, Audit Wales. So the first item starts on page 65. So item 9 is the Audit Wales work programme and timetable, pages 65 to 74. So I shall hand over to our colleagues from Audit Wales.
Thank you, Chair. This is the second quarterly update you've had in relation to structuring our work to you as an authority. Happy to take any questions. The accounts have been audited. The financial sustainability national report and local report is at the next 2 items. So happy to take more detailed questions then. We set out there the work of the external regulators, CAW and Estin, as well as ourselves. And happy to take any further questions, any detail of the reports that we've listed there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Justine. Well, members, do you have any questions or comments on this item in particular? We have the other 2 items coming now, but those items listed on pages 65 to 74, first of all. Anyone? Okay, if not, this item is for noting. Therefore, we'll go on to item 10. So pages 75 to 90, the financial sustainability of local government that was mentioned earlier. So Justine or Gillian, do you want to comment briefly on this?
Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you, Chair. Item 10, that's the financial sustainability report on local government. That's the national report. I don't intend to go through it in any detail, but I just wanted to draw out a couple of points that are sort of pertinent to your role in the audit committee, or audit and governance committee, sorry. The national report has looked at financial sustainability of all local government in Wales, and it builds on the report that we published in October 2020 and sets out the position in a national context. And I just wanted to say that throughout that work, we did engage with the Society of Welsh Treasurers. You may see reading through the report, there are a couple of key themes. Firstly, that additional funding was provided to councils to mitigate the costs of the pandemic. And as a result, the financial position of all councils in Wales has improved over the year. All councils have increased their levels of reserves, and it's important for them, for councils, to think about how they're going to use their reserves, what their planned approach is, and how to regularly review their use. They also the report found that there were some areas of significant overspends in some councils, and that demand pressures continue to increase. That happened before the pandemic, and that's likely to continue through as a result of the pandemic. That most local reports reflect the ongoing work needed to develop a more sustainable approach to financial planning in the medium term. Exhibit 6 on page 87 sets out 4 steps that we found nationally councils can do more to improve financial sustainability. They're in relation to financial strategies, reserves, performance against budget and savings delivery. In terms of our next steps, then we intend to keep monitoring Council's financial positions, and we do intend to publish a financial sustainability data tool, which we hope to publish in January when all the accounts audits for local councils are finalised. And then we intend to update this data tool annually. So that data tool will be available to you on our website, and it'll also be available to members of the public. If I go on to item 11 then, which is the financial sustainability report we did for Neath Talbot, which is built into then our national report. This local report builds on the work we did in 2019-20. The themes follow those in the national report, and in overall we found that the council is well placed to maintain its financial sustainability, and over the course of the year had plans to strengthen some aspects of financial management. As with all councils in Wales, additional Welsh funding mitigated the immediate impact of COVID on your financial sustainability. In 2019, we reported that your financial planning focused primarily on annual budgeting and you didn't have a published medium-term financial plan. But I understand that further work is planned to develop that. The level of reserves, in common with other councils, has increased over the year. The council has had a good track record in the past of delivering services within agreed budgets and of achieving most of its planned savings. If anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Gillian. Well, questions, please, on both of those reports. The first one is the general across Wales, and second one, of course, is our council. Cynghorydd Arwyn Wilcox, what's on that?
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at page 79, Chair, and how the situation in Wales compares with England, and it gives some brief details there. And in addition to what they're saying, that it is a matter for concern, Unison did publish a report recently suggesting that the councils across England, Wales and Scotland anticipate a combined funding gap of £3 billion for the financial year 2022-23. So whilst Neath Talbot's current reserves remains within the guidelines set by Wales Audit and SIPFA, I think there still needs to be a great level of caution as to how those reserves are utilised, because once they're gone, they're gone. We've heard in the past few years of councils such as Northamptonshire getting into some serious difficulties. So I just wondered what Wales Audit's view of that, of the Unison report is, anticipating across England, Wales and Scotland a funding up of £3 billion. Thank you, Chair.
Diolch, Arwyn. Gillian?
The financial situation going forward as a result of the pandemic is likely to be very challenging, and you're right to point out that you've got reserves now, but you have to use them wisely, and making sure that you understand, what your priorities are, what you should be releasing your reserves to. The future is uncertain. We don't know yet what the long-term impacts of the pandemic will be on your future demand for services. So yes, I think there will likely be a financial gap. You'll need to work, with your chief finance officer and your chief exec to make sure that you use your reserves as wisely as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Gillian. As Governance and Audit Committee, of course, we are charged with ensuring that the processes are all in place to guarantee that those discussions that will happen in terms of the reserves and all other aspects happen transparently and openly and correctly, of course. So that's our role in checking that everything happens, in a way that that it should happen, rather than have surprises come along because processes weren't open or weren't being followed correctly. So this is presumably a very important time for all councils. As Arwyn says, there's a huge challenge across the British Isles with the pandemic having not yet gone away, it's not just the British Isles, it's probably right across the world that governments and local authorities everywhere are in a special kind of crisis mode at the moment. So we were aware of that. So as governance and audit colleagues, we have to check that as an authority we are doing the best we can in the way that we are charged with operating. So that's basically our role, isn't it? Okay, there's enough of a rant from myself. Colleagues, have you got any other questions or comments on either of those two reports? Okay, if not, I'd like to thank Justine and Gillian. There's no recommendation with those two items, item 10 and item 11. It's for noting, so colleagues would please note those two items. Item 12 is urgent items. I have no urgent items today. Therefore, item 13 is access to meetings. We are now going to be moving into private. So pursuant to section 100A 4 and 5 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 12 and 15 of part 4 of schedule 12A of the above act. Somebody please move.
Move, Chair.
Thank you. And seconded?
Seconded.
Diolch yn fawr. Right, so we go into private. The recording will